Hey everyone, in front of the camera here I have the number 35 by Great Eastern Cutlery Churchill. Now before I get into the two that are in front of the camera, let's get into the history of the number 35 pattern. Number 35 pattern premiered in 2016 with two SFOs, one being the Blade form knife, and the second was a SFO from Charlie Campagna, being the number 10 harness jack. Both of those knives featured a spear point main blade, and on the opposite end, instead of a jackknife, but opposite end opening, was a punch awl. And then in mid 2017, we saw the number 35 released in a farm and field trim, which instead of having these, nice fancy bolsters and nice cover options, we had different micartas offered, as well as a Delrin in an acrylic, and that was called the calf pen jack. Both knives pivoted on the same end, hence the jack pen. We had a Warncliffe and then a one-arm man blade. And I can't remember which one, but one of them also had, I think, a kind of liner lock mechanism. And that, of course, looked a lot different from these because it was in that farm and field trim. And I believe they're still available. They are, of course, at farm and field prices, which means they are less than anything in the Tidute or Northfield trim by Great Eastern Cutlery. So, recently finished was the number 35 Churchill, and this is a cigar-shaped frame by Great Eastern Cutlery, and I think that's where we get the name Churchill, kind of a Churchill cigar. And previously, I think there was a 53 Cuban cigar, is what they called it. The 53 is a bit larger. Churchill is a really good size. I think that this is just kind of the perfect size for a traditional knife. To kind of give you perspective on that, I have a 54 Big Jack cigar. So again, cigar shape frame here. But this 54, even though it's not really wider, it is a whole lot, well, it's not a whole lot, but it is a good amount longer there. So that gives you an idea next to a 54. Let's see what else we got. We have a line steel round head. So it's about the same length of the line steel round head. Also have a GEC number 77 Barlow. So it's about the same size as that as well. Finally, let's put in a GEC number 15. So it is shorter than a Great Eastern Cutlery number 15. So it's about that right medium size for a pocket knife, which I think works pretty good. I'll get these out on the camera. So we'll start with this. In Tidute trim, we have this number 35 Churchill. And in the Tidute trim for this run, we had three different options. Cougar Clawed Bone, this one here, Gabon Ebony, and Maroon Linen Micarta. Getting into the number 35 Churchill itself, we have bolsters on each end for that cigar shaped frame. This one has that hot dog shield, which is kind of infamous at this point. Some people really don't like it, and they've been asking GEC to get rid of it. And I think someone at GEC even responded to a comment saying they're not getting rid of it. So here we go. Main blade here is a clip point. A very nice clip point at that. GEC makes some of the nicest clip points. And this is a standard clip point versus sometimes when they do that muskrat clip. But they do this really well. Really like how that turned out. Secondary blade is a small but not teeny Warncliffe. It's not a coping blade. I mean, not Warncliffe, sheep's foot. So it's actually a pretty usable size sheep's foot blade. And this is where you get the tank stamps for the model number, is on the secondary here. So we have a 35 frame, 1 for clip point main, 2 for 2 blades, and 17 for 2017. Over here we also got Titusville Ironworks. The rest of the stamps are on the main blade. And that's Tidute Cutlery, made in the USA. And then Great Eastern Cutlery, Titusville Ironworks, Pennsylvania. I really like how this Gabon Ebony turned out. This side is pretty dark, this main side here. But on the other side here, we got a little bit of lighter patch, which I kind of like. Some people really like it very dark throughout, but I kind of like when sometimes you get a little bit of character there. Really nice. Single spring, just like the 35 that premiered in 2016. So both blades are running on the same spring, opposite end. Makes for a very thin package, and as always, GEC does this well. There's not a lot of clearance in between those blades, but there's also really not. I think there's a little, maybe a little teeny bit of rub, but it's not hardly noticeable. GEC does superb work, and this is just another piece of evidence in that. Transitions between the bolsters and the covers are pretty good. Everything is done really well. On these 35s, there's actually no half stops, so yeah, no half stops on either blades, which I prefer most of the time, but my enjoyment of this pattern, and that's why I have two, I kind of got over that. I mean, I don't mind it. The pull on this one is pretty light. It's like a 4.5 or 5. So it's not a very hard pull, but this is a small blade. And it's not huge, so you don't really need a huge pull weight or anything on that. The secondary sheep's foot is about the same. Good walk and talk though. I really like that, and also when you get this clip main out, because it's an opposite end, doesn't really interfere with your grip for that. For sheep's foot, not really either. I mean, it's really well designed, and this is becoming one of my favorite patterns. Especially this Churchill. I had a 35 blade forms knife. I actually got rid of that. I kind of regret it now. But having these two 35s here in the Churchill configuration, I'm not as upset because I really like these. Because this Gabon Ebony, I really like Gabon Ebony that GEC does. So this was one of the first ones that came out. So I snatched that up. That is in the Tidute trim. Well, let's get into one of the Northfield trims. So as far as the Northfield trims go, we have a few options that came out. We had a smooth yellow rose bone, which is a Texas rose run that they've done before in different frames. That's a very yellow, I think, cattle bone, and they put a little Texas rose shield, put I think yellow Texas rose on the yellow Texas rose stamped on the knife, and there's also a special sticker on the tubes for those ones. So they had that. This is what they're calling hummingbird acrylic. I think when originally it was announced they were gonna call it, I think, jungle camo acrylic. Then it became new green acrylic, and then they finally settled with hummingbird acrylic. We also had, I think, sandbar stag, and they also had this unique one which was called green banana bone, which kind of looked very close to the smooth yellow rose bone, but instead of putting the rose shield and the stamping on the blade, they put a banana shield, which they I don't believe they've done before. So that was pretty neat. Those ones were not actually announced in the production schedule, and I think anyone who had a early reserve for a smooth yellow rose bone through Mike Latham at Collector Knives got the option to choose, I think, some of the green banana bone. There was one SFO in this run, which was a all about pocket knives SFO, which had a, I believe, rust red jig bone covers. That was an SFO through their forums. So this one is the Hummingbird acrylic. So as you can see, differences here. We have lined bolsters for the Northfield trim. We have a cloud shield, which is pretty neat. I like the cloud shield. I do prefer it over the hot dog shield. Now, interestingly enough, even though we have that long pole, which you would on Northfield trim knives, we do not have a mirror polished blade. These are both satin finish. So, give you an idea. Here is Northfield trim SFO Big Jack number 54, and that's Northfield trim. So you can see that's a mirror polish. This is a satin. Normally that's only done in SFOs, and this was not an SFO. So I'm not sure why that was, as I think the smooth yellow rose Texas rose knife actually had mirror polish blades, but these do not. Regardless, I don't really care because I kind of prefer some of those satin finish blades because they don't show fingerprints as well. But there you go, you got that long pole, which really looks nice in that clip point. I wasn't sure how these acrylic covers would turn out. I got an idea of what the acrylic would look like when I think someone posted on one of the groups of what they thought the acrylic was going to be, looking at one of the acrylic manufacturers, and I kind of imagined it looking like that, and it actually came out pretty close to what I had in my mind, and so I'm really satisfied with that because I think it looks great. But yeah, as you can see, no long pole on the secondary sheep's foot. Secondary sheep's foot there. But yeah, they are both satin finish instead of mirror polish in Northfield trim. Again, the poles, yeah, about a 5 or so. Not bad. Again, no half stops, but this pattern has grown on me, and I've kind of gotten over the fact it doesn't have half stops. Now this Hummingbird acrylic is hard to take pictures of. I'm trying to get the best I can with it on film, but it is really nice. You got this nice dark green tone, these streaks of brown, a little bit of streaks of black there too, but yeah, it looks really nice in person. Acrylics are always not my favorite, but sometimes, especially with Greatest and Cutlery, they come through and come out with some really nice acrylics. I'm sure part of it is just the way they manufacture knives, and they do such a great job at it. I think both of these are still in stock, those places. The Gabon Ebony and the Hummingbird acrylic. The smooth yellow rose, those probably went really fast. I think that they weren't even available for the early reserve. I think they filled up completely. There's probably some stag left. I think there's some maroon linen micarta. So yeah, I think that these are still pretty readily available. Hopefully not for long though, because these are really nice, and I hope that people get their hands on these. Because although that cigar shaped frame is a little different, it's not a Barlow, it's not like the boy's knife frame, so it's a little different. And not having those half stops is something that a lot of GEC collectors might not like, but this is a really nice knife. And as far as this one goes, yeah, you can't catch any of the transitions on it. This is, I think, one of the last runs of the Churchill that they did. And it's just, this is like flawless. I mean, there's no blade play. There's no catching on the transitions. Everything is done well. I don't think there's even, I can't see any marks on either the blades for blade rub. And again, that clip point passes right over that Warncliffe there, all the way past the tang, or the tang there of that, oh, not Warncliffe, sheepsfoot. So this is really well done. You can even see how they cut the grind there so the sheepsfoot could pass. Really nice fin package, single back spring. I don't know, I just, I can't get over how well this acrylic turned out. I wasn't sure how it would, but it's great. I mean, not a big acrylic guy, but this one really got me. And of course, that Gabon Ebony. This is definitely turning into one of my favorite patterns. And I didn't think it would when it first came out, but it sure is now. So there you go, Gradation Cutlery number 35 Churchill. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. I appreciate it if you subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching.